Introduction. Imagine for a moment that life is not simply a path to walk along, but a battlefield where every step challenges you, every breath tests you, and every obstacle reminds you of your own fragility. David Goggins invites us into this battlefield, not to frighten us, but to reveal the truth that has shaped his life, that the human mind and body are capable of far more than we believe, and that pain, adversity, and hardship are not enemies to be avoided, but teachers to be embraced. In his book, Can't Hurt Me, Goggins tells a story that is raw, unforgiving, and brutally honest, but is also filled with lessons that speak to anyone who has ever faced fear, doubt, or limitation. This is not a self-help book filled with quick tips or comforting words. It is a roadmap forged in fire, written in sweat and blood, and carried by a man who has lived through hell and chosen to walk back into it voluntarily, again and again, because he understood that true growth is born only in struggle. David Goggins begins with a promise that the limitations you believe you have are illusions. He reminds us that most people operate at only 40% of their true capacity, retreating when discomfort rises, quitting when their mind whispers that they cannot go further. But he insists that beyond that 40% lies the zone where greatness is forged, a place where very few dare to go. And it is only by pushing through the barrier of pain and doubt that one discovers the power of the human spirit. His life becomes the evidence of this principle, for he was not born strong, not born fearless, not born in a privilege. He was a child scarred by abuse, poverty, racism, and hopelessness. Yet he transformed himself into a Navy SEAL, an ultramarathon runner, a record-breaking endurance athlete, and above all, a man who has conquered his own mind. As we step into his world, the introduction sets the tone. You'll be uncomfortable, you'll be challenged, and you'll be asked to reflect not on his victories alone, but on your own excuses, your own barriers, your own untapped potential. This audiobook is not merely his story. It is a mirror, and what you see in it will depend on whether you are willing to confront your own truths. So let us begin, not with triumph, but with the brutal reality of where he came from, and how pain became the foundation of his transformation. Chapter 1. I should have been a statistic. Every story of transformation begins in a place of darkness, and David Goggins' story begins in a childhood that should have broken him completely. Born in Buffalo, New York, in 1975, Goggins entered a world that was violent, chaotic, and unforgiving. His father, Trunnies, ran a skating rink and was a man of immense presence, but also of immense cruelty. Behind the surface of success and community standing, he was abusive, controlling, and violent. For David, childhood was not a sanctuary of play or laughter. It was a battlefield where survival meant enduring beatings, insults, and a constant atmosphere of fear. He watched his mother suffer under his father's hands, and he himself felt the sting of belts, fists, and words designed to strip away his sense of worth. These early years planted seeds of pain that might have destroyed a weaker soul. But the pain was not confined to the walls of his home. Outside, he faced racism that reminded him he did not belong. He remembers walking into classrooms where he was the only black child, feeling the stares, hearing the slurs, carrying the weight of invisibility and hostility. Poverty added another layer of hardship. There were nights when food was scarce, when bills could not be paid, when the future seemed like a door locked from the outside. By all accounts, David Goggins should have been a statistic, another child lost to violence, poverty, and despair. He had every reason to give up before he even began, and yet, there was a flicker of something inside him, something he did not yet understand but would later recognize as the seed of resilience. As he tells his story, he does not paint himself as heroic in those early years. He was broken, scared, uncertain. He struggled in school. He doubted himself constantly. He ran from challenges rather than toward them. But beneath the surface, the pain was slowly forging a callus, hardening his mind in ways he could not yet articulate. He was being prepared, though he did not know it, for the battles ahead. In recounting this chapter, Goggins makes us pause and reflect. How many of us carry wounds from our childhood, scars invisible yet heavy, that continue to define the way we see ourselves? How often do we use our past as an excuse for what we cannot do, rather than fuel for what we might become? Goggins insists that though we cannot control where we start, we can control where we finish. The first chapter is not simply a recounting of trauma. It is a reminder that adversity, no matter how brutal, can be the foundation of greatness if we choose to confront it rather than run from it. He shares moments that feel like they should have destroyed him. The nights when he could not sleep because fear haunted the corners of his room. The mornings when he looked in the mirror and saw not potential, but a broken child destined to fail. And yet he survived. Survival itself became his first victory. This, he explains, is the first lesson. Endurance begins not with running ultramarathons or completing military training, but with surviving your own circumstances, holding on long enough to see that you are capable of more than your environment has told you. As the chapter closes, Goggins leaves us with a sense of uneasy inspiration. His story is not yet one of triumph. Far from it. But it is a story of survival, and survival is the soil in which resilience can grow. He tells us that while he should have been a statistic, while the odds were against him, he chose not to let those odds define him. And as we turn the page to the next chapter, we carry with us the realization that no matter how dark our beginnings, no matter how painful our past, the story is not over. The battlefield lies ahead, and the first victory is simply deciding to fight. Chapter 2, Truth Hurts. When we survive the storms of childhood, we often believe that the worst is behind us. That time will heal the wounds and distance will erase the scars. But for David Goggins, stepping out of his father's violent household did not mean stepping into safety or success. Instead, it revealed another painful truth. Survival alone is not enough. If we cling to excuses, if we hide behind lies about who we are and what we are capable of, we will never move beyond the shadow of our past. And for a long time, David Goggins lived in that shadow, weighed down by self-doubt, unhealthy habits, and a refusal to confront the harsh reality staring back at him in the mirror. As a teenager, Goggins was not the picture of discipline or strength. He was overweight, out of shape, and trapped in a cycle of mediocrity. He drifted through life, often skipping school, cheating on tests, and doing whatever he could to avoid accountability. He had learned to mask his insecurities with excuses, to blame his circumstances, his skin color, his broken home, and his environment for the lack of progress in his life. Deep down, he knew he was capable of more, but the gap between who he was and who he wanted to be seemed too wide, too impossible to bridge. The truth was painful, and so he chose denial instead of confrontation. But denial is a fragile shield. Each time he looked in the mirror, reality stared back at him. The young man looking at his reflection saw obesity, failure, and weakness. Not just physical weakness, but mental weakness, the kind that keeps a person from ever attempting to rise above. And the more he avoided the truth, the more the weight of his own disappointment crushed him. Goggins describes this period with raw honesty. He was lost, drifting, and suffocating under the lies he told himself. Yet within that suffocation, a realization began to emerge. He understood, painfully, that no one was coming to save him. No one was going to hand him discipline, strength, or purpose. If he wanted a different life, he would have to build it himself. And that process could only begin with one step: facing the truth. He calls this practice the accountability mirror. It was not a fancy tool, not a complicated system, but a simple and brutally honest conversation with himself. He would stand in front of the mirror and confront the man staring back at him. He would speak aloud the words he needed to hear, words that cut through excuses and denial. If he was fat, he called himself fat. If he was lazy, he admitted his laziness. If he was failing, he owned that failure. There was no room for sugarcoating, no soft language to protect his ego. The accountability mirror became his weapon against self-deception, and with each day, he began to replace lies with truth and truth with action. To remind himself of his commitments, he wrote goals on sticky notes and posted them around the mirror. Each note was a promise, a challenge, a reminder that change was possible if he was willing to do the work. The mirror reflected not just his flaws, but his potential. And slowly, the boy who once drowned in excuses began to take responsibility for his own future. Goggins shares this with a purpose, because we all have an accountability mirror in our lives, whether we acknowledge it or not. We all carry the truth within us, and most of the time we bury it under distractions, comfort, or blame. But progress begins with honesty, and honesty often hurts. That hurt is not a punishment, but a catalyst. If we can stand before our own reflection and admit where we have fallen short, we can begin to rise. He invites us to consider, what lies have we been telling ourselves? Do we blame others for our lack of progress? Do we pretend we are working hard when in reality, we are avoiding discomfort? Do we imagine a future that will magically arrive without discipline, sacrifice, or pain? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Goggins insists that the only way forward is through radical accountability, the kind that strips away illusions and forces us to see who we really are. In this chapter, he also reminds us of a universal truth. Most people will never confront themselves because it is easier to remain blind. It is easier to blame the world than to face the mirror. But those who dare to look honestly will find power where others see only shame. The truth hurts, yes, but also heals. It cuts through weakness, it burns away excuses, and it clears the path for transformation. By the end of this chapter, the message is clear. If you want to change your life, you must first confront the brutal facts of who you are today. No more lies, no more excuses, no more hiding. The accountability mirror is waiting, and it will not lie to you. The question is whether you have the courage to look. As Goggins turns toward the next stage of his journey, he carries with him the raw clarity that comes from truth. And with that clarity, he begins the painful but powerful process of transformation. Chapter 3, The Impossible Task. The moment when life demands transformation rarely comes at a time of comfort. For David Goggins, that moment arrived when he was 24 years old, overweight, lost, and trapped in a dead-end job spraying for cockroaches at restaurants and fast food joints. It was dirty work that kept him up all night, work that paid little and offered nothing but the promise of more of the same. He was 300 pounds, out of shape, addicted to junk food and television, living inside the cocoon of excuses he had built around himself. From the outside, he was invisible. From the inside, he felt powerless. And then one evening, sitting on his couch, something shifted. He turned on the television, and what he saw changed his life. It was a documentary on the Navy SEALs, showing men being pushed to their absolute limits, enduring Hell Week, shivering in icy waters, running through the sand with logs on their shoulders, crawling through mud with eyes full of fire. The images hit him like a bolt of lightning. Here were men who embodied everything he was not: disciplined, strong, relentless, unbreakable. He stared at the screen, transfixed, not with admiration, but with a burning realization. If he kept living the way he was, he would die without ever testing his own potential. The couch, the food, the excuses, they would be his coffin. That night, he decided to change. He called recruiters and told them he wanted to become a Navy SEAL. But the truth struck hard. At over 300 pounds, he was nowhere near the weight requirement. The recruiters laughed at him, some even dismissing him outright. But one recruiter gave him a sliver of hope. If he could lose over 100 pounds in less than 3 months, he might have a chance to qualify. It was, by every measure, an impossible task. Most people would have quit right there. Most would have laughed at the absurdity of trying to shed 100 pounds in such a short time. But David Goggins was not like most people, not anymore. He had stared into the accountability mirror. He had confronted the truth, and now he had a goal so massive it terrified him. That terror became fuel. He cleaned out his kitchen, threw away the junk food, and created a plan. He began to run, barely making it half a mile before collapsing, but he did not stop. Each day, he pushed further. He biked, he swam, he lifted weights, he punished his body hour after hour, sometimes exercising for nearly 6 hours a day. He ate lean foods, cut his portions, and endured the hunger that gnawed at him as his body screamed for the comfort of old habits. It was agony. His joints ached, his lungs burned, and his mind screamed at him to quit. But each morning he returned to the accountability mirror and reminded himself of the promise. On the mirror, he wrote his goals: lose 100 pounds, become a SEAL. Each day he marked his progress, no matter how small. And slowly, the impossible began to bend. The weight came off. His endurance grew. His strength returned. He was transforming, not just physically, but mentally. The impossible task was never just about losing weight. It was about proving to himself that limits are illusions. By setting a goal so far beyond what seemed reasonable, he forced his mind to adapt, to grow, to become calloused against pain and doubt. He embraced the suffering, understanding that every drop of sweat was a step away from the man he had been and closer to the man he wanted to become. And then, in less than 3 months, the scale confirmed what few would have believed. He had lost the weight. He walked back into the recruiter's office, not as the man who had once been dismissed, but as a man who had taken control of his destiny. He qualified for SEAL training. He had turned the impossible into reality. Yet Goggins does not share this story to boast. He shares it to teach. We all face tasks that feel impossible. Perhaps it is losing weight. Perhaps it is breaking free from debt. Perhaps it is pursuing a dream others have told us is out of reach. The lesson is universal. Impossible is a word we assign to tasks we are unwilling to attempt. Once we commit, once we burn the ships and remove the escape routes, we discover that the mind can endure far more than we imagined. He asks us to reflect. What is your impossible task? What dream have you dismissed because it felt too far away, too hard, too unrealistic? And what would happen if, instead of surrendering, you decided today to take the first step, no matter how painful, no matter how small? The impossible task, Goggins reminds us, is not truly impossible. It is the doorway to transformation. As this chapter closes, we leave Goggins at the edge of a new life. He has shed the weight, both physical and mental, and he is ready to enter the crucible of SEAL training. Ahead lies Hell Week, the trial that has broken men stronger than him, the test that will strip away everything but the core of his willpower. But before we step into that storm, we carry with us the lesson of this chapter. Impossible is nothing but a test of how far you are willing to go. Chapter 4, Taking Souls. There comes a time in every battle when sheer endurance is not enough, when the body has been pushed so far that it refuses to obey, and when the only thing left is the mind. For David Goggins, that time arrived in the brutal crucible of Navy SEAL Hell Week. Imagine a week with almost no sleep, endless miles of running, ocean swims in freezing water, log carries, boat races, and constant harassment from instructors whose job is to break you, to strip away every layer of comfort until only your essence remains. Most men quit. Some quit in the first hours, some last a day or two, but by the end, only a fraction survive. When Goggins entered Hell Week, he carried more than just physical exhaustion. He carried the memories of his childhood, the pain of being underestimated, the sting of every insult and every dismissal. But he also carried something new, a weapon forged not from muscle, but from perspective. He called it taking souls. The idea was simple but powerful. In Hell Week, the instructors held all the power. They controlled when you ate, when you slept, how much pain you endured. Their mission was to break you. But Goggins realized something that few others did. Even in the depths of suffering, you could seize control by outworking their expectations, by flipping the script and showing them that no matter what they did, they could not touch your spirit. When the instructors screamed, when they tried to grind you down, when they push you into the freezing surf at 2 in the morning, you could look them in the eye, smile through the pain, and keep going. That smile was not just defiance. It was the moment you stole their soul. To take someone's soul, in Goggins' terms, is to turn the tables in the darkest moments. It is to perform so well under pressure, so relentlessly, that those who doubted you are left shaken, questioning their own power, their own resolve. In Hell Week, he did this not just to the instructors, but also to the other candidates. While many collapsed from exhaustion, while others muttered complaints, he kept pushing, sometimes even laughing at the absurdity of the pain. He used suffering as fuel, and his energy spread. Others began to see him not as the overweight man who had struggled just months before, but as a force, a competitor, someone whose willpower could not be broken. Taking souls became more than a tactic for Hell Week. It became a philosophy for life. Whenever he faced a challenge, whether in the military, in ultramarathons, or in personal struggles, he asked himself, how can I flip this? How can I turn the pain into fuel so strong that it leaves others astonished, even defeated by my resilience? It was not about arrogance or revenge. It was about reclaiming control in situations designed to strip control away. He invites us to apply this mindset to our own lives. Perhaps you have a boss who doubts you, a teacher who tells you that you will never succeed, or a circumstance that seems designed to keep you down. Instead of shrinking, you can rise. You can work harder, prepare more, endure longer, until the very people who doubted you are forced to acknowledge your strength. That moment, when their doubt turns to respect or even fear, is when you have taken their soul. But the deeper lesson is not about others. It is about yourself. Taking souls is ultimately about proving to yourself that you can endure more than you imagined. It is about reframing suffering not as an enemy, but as an opportunity. When you smile in the face of pain, you send a message to your own mind. You cannot hurt me. As Hell Week dragged on, with sleep deprivation breaking men left and right, Goggins leaned harder into this philosophy. Every time the instructors pushed, he pushed back harder. Every time they expected him to falter, he surged forward. By the end, he was not just surviving Hell Week. He was thriving in it, turning the impossible into a game, feeding off the challenge, and transforming into the man he had promised himself he would become. The chapter closes with a powerful truth. In life, people will always try to impose limits on you. They will doubt you, challenge you, and sometimes try to break you. But you hold a weapon they cannot touch. When you decide to embrace suffering, to outlast, outwork, and outshine, you take their souls, and in doing so, you discover your own unbreakable strength. Chapter 5, Armor Mind. If Hell Week was a battlefield, then the victory Goggins earned there was not simply physical. It was a victory of the mind. Yet even as he endured the surf, the endless miles, and the punishing drills, he understood something profound. One battle won does not end the war. Life is relentless. Pain returns. Doubt creeps in. And if you do not continue to fortify your mind, the cracks will widen and eventually break you. That realization gave birth to what Goggins calls the armored mind, a mental state forged through suffering, strengthened through discipline, and hardened against the unpredictability of life. To understand the armored mind, you must first picture the opposite. Imagine a person who drifts through life untested, who avoids discomfort, who seeks only comfort and ease. That person may seem happy when the weather is fair, when the seas are calm, but the moment a storm arrives, their fragile mind shatters. They panic, they crumble, they retreat. Comfort has left them unprepared. The unarmored mind is like glass, clear, smooth, and beautiful, but quick to break under pressure. Goggins knew he could never afford that fragility again. He had spent too many years hiding from the truth, too many nights trapped by excuses, too many mornings staring at a reflection that mocked him. The accountability mirror had revealed the truth. Taking souls had shown him his power. But the war required more than moments of triumph. It required consistency. And consistency could only come from building a mind that was not only strong but armored, protected against weakness, impervious to fear, resilient in the face of suffering. The armored mind is not built overnight. Just as calluses form on the hands of a laborer or the feet of a runner, calluses must form on the mind. Each time Goggins subjected himself to discomfort, each time he chose the harder path, he was layering on that armor, running in the cold when others stayed warm, training in pain when others rested, seeking out the struggle others avoided. All of these moments were deposits in the bank of resilience, and with each deposit, his mind grew thicker, tougher, harder to penetrate. He explains it with an analogy. Life will throw darts, knives, and arrows at you. If you walk into battle with bare skin, every strike will wound you deeply. But if you have built armor, thick, tested, and unbreakable, those strikes will bounce off. You may still feel the sting, but it will not stop you. That armor is built through repeated exposure to discomfort. There is no shortcut, no easy way, no pill or program that can deliver it. You must earn it, hour by hour, day by day. In the military, Goggins applied this principle relentlessly. When others rested after training, he trained more. When others complained about conditions, he embraced them. If it was cold, he went without extra clothing. If it was hot, he ran longer distances under the sun. Each time, he was teaching his mind a lesson. You can endure this. You are stronger than you believe. And little by little, the fragile mind that once broke under pressure became an armored one that welcomed it. The armored mind also means refusing to let emotions control you. Fear, anger, and doubt are natural, but they do not have to dictate your actions. When fear whispers that you cannot go on, the armored mind replies with action. When doubt suggests you are not enough, the armored mind counters with proof from past victories. When anger rises, the armored mind does not lash out blindly, but channels that energy into focus and drive. Armor does not make you emotionless. It makes you resilient enough to act despite emotion. Goggins challenges us to ask, how are we building our own armor? Do we seek comfort or discomfort? Do we allow small setbacks to derail us? Or do we use them to strengthen our resolve? Each day offers opportunities to add another layer, but most people turn away. They choose warmth over cold, ease over difficulty, safety over risk. And each time, they trade away strength for fragility. The beauty of the armored mind is that anyone can build it. You do not need to be a Navy SEAL or an ultramarathon runner. You simply need to choose the harder path in your own life. Wake up earlier than you want. Exercise when your body says no. Study when your friends are playing. Speak up when fear tempts you into silence. Each of these moments is a brick in the fortress of your mind. By the end of this chapter, Goggins leaves us with a vision. Life is not about avoiding battles, but preparing for them. Storms will come. Pain is inevitable. But with an armored mind, You can walk into the storm unafraid, knowing that no matter how hard the winds howl, no matter how fierce the rain falls, you will not break. The fragile mind shatters, the armored mind endures. And with that endurance, anything becomes possible. Chapter 6, it's not about a trophy. When most people set out to accomplish great things, they picture the reward waiting at the end, the medal, the recognition, the applause, the validation from others. But David Goggins discovered something different, something deeper, that the real value of pushing your limits is not found in the trophy at the finish line, but in the transformation that occurs along the way. The finish line fades, the applause dies, the medals gather dust. What remains is who you became in the process of reaching for the impossible. This realization did not come to him in the comfort of reflection, but in the brutal arena of ultramarathon running. After becoming a Navy SEAL, Goggins continued to seek new ways to test himself, and in doing so, he stumbled into the world of endurance racing. He had never been a runner in his youth, quite the opposite. Yet now, with his armored mind forged in military trials, he set his sights on races that would push him further than ever before. One of his first major challenges was the San Diego One Day, a 24-hour race around a track. He entered with little preparation, driven by the desire to raise money for the families of fallen Navy SEALs, but also by a curiosity to test his own limits. The rules were simple: run as many miles as possible in 24 hours. Most runners trained for months, carefully managing their nutrition, pacing, and strategy. Goggins, true to his nature, dove in head first. The race began smoothly enough, but soon the miles became punishment. His body broke down. His feet blistered until skin peeled away. His legs swelled. At one point, he lost control of his bowels. The pain was so severe that most would have stopped, but Goggins kept moving, one step at a time, forcing his body to obey his mind. He did not run for a trophy, nor for applause. He ran because each mile was a chance to confront the limits of his own endurance. By the time the race ended, he had run over 100 miles in less than 24 hours, a feat few believe possible for someone with so little training. He collapsed at the finish line, broken but triumphant, not because of the number on the clock, but because of the discovery it represented. The human body can endure unimaginable suffering when commanded by a relentless mind. This race, and many that followed, taught him a lesson he carried into every arena of life. The prize is not the medal, but the process. Every step in pain, every moment of doubt overcome, every wall broken through. Those are the real trophies. The external recognition may inspire you to start, but it cannot sustain you. When the applause fades, when no one is watching, only the internal drive to grow will keep you going. Goggins invites us to reflect on our own goals. Why do we pursue success? Is it for validation from others? Or is it to discover what we are truly capable of? If we chase trophies alone, we will eventually quit, because the suffering will outweigh the external reward. But if we chase growth, if we pursue mastery for its own sake, then no amount of pain can stop us. The pursuit becomes its own reward. He recalls how, after many races, people would ask him about his times, his medals, his rankings. But none of that mattered to him. What mattered was whether he had faced a moment when his body begged him to stop, and whether he had kept going anyway. That was the true test. That was the victory that no one could take away. The lesson here is simple yet profound. Don't do it for the trophy. Do it for the growth, for the transformation, for the strength you build in the process. Life's greatest rewards are not physical. They are internal. They are the discipline, the resilience, the callous mind that can endure anything. As this chapter closes, Goggins leaves us with a challenge. The next time you pursue a goal, ask yourself why. If it is only for recognition, you will fall short. But if it is to see how far you can go, to discover the person you are meant to be, then every mile, every failure, every ounce of suffering will be worth it. Because the real trophy is not something you can hold in your hands. It is the unbreakable spirit you carry within. Chapter 7. The most powerful weapon. There is a moment in every struggle when the body has nothing left to give, when the legs cramp, the lungs burn, the skin tears, and every fiber screams for relief. Most people quit at that moment. They believe they have reached their end. But David Goggins discovered that the true limit lies far beyond the breaking point. And the key to unlocking it is not in muscle, not in talent, not in physical gifts, but in the mind. The mind, he insists, is the most powerful weapon any of us will ever possess. By now, Goggins had endured Navy SEAL training, ultramarathons, and unimaginable suffering. He had seen men stronger, faster, and more gifted than him collapse when pressure rose. What separated him from them was not genetics, not strength, not natural ability. It was his ability to control his mind, to weaponize it against fear, doubt, and fatigue. He calls this mastery the most powerful weapon because it is the one thing that cannot be taken from you. Your body may fail. Circumstances may crush you. The world may strip away comfort and security. But if your mind is fortified, you remain undefeated. One of the tools Goggins used to sharpen this weapon is what he calls the cookie jar. Imagine a jar filled with every victory, every achievement, every time you prove yourself stronger than you thought. Each moment you overcame hardship is a cookie placed in that jar. And when life beats you down, when doubt clouds your vision, you reach into the jar, pull out a memory, and remind yourself, I've been here before, and I overcame. This simple practice fuels the mind with evidence of its own resilience. For Goggins, the cookie jar was filled with painful yet powerful memories. He remembered surviving his abusive childhood. He remembered losing 100 pounds in 3 months to qualify for SEAL training. He remembered Hell Week, when he smiled in the face of exhaustion. Each time he faced a new challenge, he dipped into the jar, pulled out those reminders, and told himself, if I could endure that, I can endure this. The past became ammunition for the present, but the mind's power goes deeper than memory. It thrives on visualization. Goggins often pictured the worst-case scenarios in his mind before they happened. He would imagine the pain, the setbacks, the failures, and then rehearse how he would respond. By confronting the storm in his mind first, he was prepared when the storm arrived in reality. While others were blindsided by hardship, he had already faced it, already endured it, already built a response. This practice turned fear into preparation and doubt into readiness. The most powerful weapon is also sharpened by discipline. Each day, Goggins forced himself to do things he did not want to do. Wake up early, run long distances, train in brutal conditions. Each time he ignored comfort and chose suffering, he was not just strengthening his body, he was strengthening his weapon. The mind, like a blade, dulls without use. But with daily sharpening, it becomes capable of cutting through any obstacle. He reflects on how most people let their minds control them instead of controlling their minds. When a body feels tired, they stop. When fear whispers, they listen. When doubt rises, they retreat. But Goggins flipped the script. He treated his mind as a tool, one he could discipline, command, and unleash when necessary. Pain became a signal not to quit, but to push harder. Fear became an invitation to step forward rather than back. Doubt became fuel to prove himself wrong. This lesson is not reserved for warriors or athletes. It belongs to all of us. Life will test you through illness, failure, heartbreak, financial struggle, or loss. In those moments, your body, your resources, even your support systems may fail, but your mind remains. If it is weak, you will break. If it is strong, you will rise. That is why the mind is the most powerful weapon. It is the last line of defense, and when sharpened, it is unstoppable. As this chapter draws to a close, Goggins leaves us with a challenge. How are you training your weapon? Are you feeding it excuses and comfort? Or are you sharpening it through hardship and discipline? Do you allow life to control your thoughts? Or do you take control of the dialogue within your head? The answer to those questions will determine not just your success, but your survival. And so we move forward with this truth. Muscles may weaken, trophies may fade, but a disciplined, calloused, and weaponized mind will carry you through storms that would crush others. The mind is the ultimate edge, the most powerful weapon you will ever hold. Chapter 8, Talent Not Required. When people look at greatness, they often assume it must be born of natural talent. They see the elite runner, the brilliant mind, the powerful leader, and they believe such ability must be a gift given at birth. But David Goggins insists otherwise. He stands as living proof that talent is not required to reach extraordinary heights. What is required is relentless discipline, brutal consistency, and an unshakable commitment to outwork everyone else. Goggins did not grow up an athlete. He was overweight, insecure, and plagued by learning disabilities. No one would have predicted that this boy would one day run ultramarathons, complete some of the toughest military training in existence, and inspire millions. Yet that is exactly what he did, not because of talent, but because he chose to devote himself to the grind, to the daily work that others avoid. In this chapter, he tells us plainly, talent is overrated. It may give you a head start, but without effort, it withers. And for those who believe they lack talent, this truth is liberating. Because the door to greatness is wide open if you are willing to suffer longer, push harder, and train with more discipline than anyone else. He recalls facing competitors in ultramarathons who were faster, stronger, and more experienced. On paper, he did not belong among them. Yet again and again, he outlasted them. Why? Because while they relied on their talent, he relied on his will. When pain arrived, talent often crumbled, but willpower, fortified by discipline, endured. To embody this truth, Goggins developed what he calls the accountability mirror. Each day he looked himself in the eye and told the truth. No excuses, no lies, no pretending he was more talented than he was. Instead, he faced the hard reality. He was slow, he was heavy, he was unskilled. And then he asked himself what he was willing to do about it. That honesty became fuel, and over time, his discipline transformed his weaknesses into strengths. He shares stories of waking up before dawn to run miles when no one was watching, of studying relentlessly to overcome his struggles in school, of pushing himself to complete more pull-ups, more push-ups, more miles than seemed possible. None of it was glamorous. None of it was built on talent. It was built on thousands of unseen hours of effort. And here lies the heart of his message. If you are waiting for talent before you begin, you will never start. Talent is not required. What is required is the willingness to do the boring, the painful, the monotonous work day after day, without applause, without recognition, without reward. That kind of consistency builds results that talent alone cannot match. Goggins reflects on how society often glorifies talent. We celebrate prodigies, we idolize natural ability, and in doing so, we discourage those who do not see themselves as gifted. But the truth is, talent is fragile. It falters under pressure, it decays without effort, and it cannot carry you through suffering. Only discipline and effort can do that. So he urges us to reframe our perspective. Stop asking whether you are talented enough. Start asking whether you are disciplined enough. Stop wondering whether you were born with the right gifts. Start committing to work so hard that gifts no longer matter. Because in the end, talent may open the door, but only effort keeps it open. As this chapter closes, Goggins offers one final reflection. You don't need to be special. You just need to be willing. Willing to be honest. willing to work, willing to suffer, willing to keep going when others quit. That willingness, not talent, is the foundation of greatness. And once you accept that truth, you free yourself from excuses and step into a world where extraordinary is possible for anyone who refuses to stop. Chapter 9: Uncommon Amongst the Uncommon. David Goggins had already endured more than most could imagine. Navy SEAL training, ultramarathons, brutal personal challenges. But even there, he realized that surviving and excelling in one arena does not guarantee greatness in all arenas. To truly distinguish oneself, to rise above even the elite, requires something more: the relentless pursuit of being uncommon amongst the uncommon. It is the drive to push past mediocrity, not just in the general world, but among those who have already proven themselves extraordinary. Goggins tells us that in the SEALs, everyone is exceptional. Everyone has mental toughness. Everyone has physical ability. The baseline is already high. Yet even in this environment, there are tiers. Some push harder, go further, endure longer. They do not settle for just surviving or meeting expectations. They reach for more. They refuse to be average, even among the exceptional. And that is where Goggins found his calling. He reflects on how easy it is to rest on laurels. Once we achieve success, once we are good enough, we often stop striving. We may still be better than most, but the elite continue to advance. They treat excellence as the starting line, not the finish. Goggins' approach was the opposite. No matter how much he accomplished, he asked himself, "What's next? How can I be better? How can I push beyond the limits that even the elite accept as normal?" One of the ways he cultivated this mindset was through constant measurement and challenge. He did not rely on subjective feelings or vague notions of progress. He quantified his performance: miles run, times recorded, calories burned, pull-ups completed, obstacles overcome. Numbers do not lie. They expose weakness. They reveal areas for improvement, and they create a tangible path to progress. By focusing on measurable growth, he could ensure that he remained uncommon, even among those already rarefied in their abilities. But being uncommon is not only about physical feats. It is about mindset, courage, and the refusal to accept limitations. In the SEAL community, many have extraordinary mental toughness, yet few truly embrace suffering voluntarily. Few push themselves to find the edges of pain and fear repeatedly. Goggins did this. He sought discomfort not as punishment, but as a tool, as a laboratory in which he could forge a mind and body that would not yield. This deliberate embrace of struggle made him stand out, not just for what he could endure, but for how he approached every challenge with focus, intensity, and presence. He shares examples from his career where this mindset made all the difference. While others stopped when conditions became unbearable, he continued. While others found excuses in fatigue, boredom, or fear, he transformed those factors into fuel. And in doing so, he created a reputation not only for physical endurance, but for an unshakable mental presence, a force that inspired respect and sometimes fear among peers. Yet Goggins emphasizes that the pursuit of being uncommon is not for recognition or praise. It is not about proving oneself to others. The goal is self-mastery, to continually raise the bar, to discover how far one can push beyond conventional limits. By striving to be uncommon amongst the uncommon, we train our minds to reject complacency, to refuse average, and to embrace a life defined by effort, resilience, and discipline. As the chapter closes, he challenges us to look at our own environments. Among your friends, colleagues, or peers, are you doing enough to stand out? Not for validation, but for growth? Are you pushing yourself to exceed what is expected, to tackle challenges others shy away from, to cultivate mental and physical resilience that sets you apart? The lesson is clear. Greatness is not reserved for the naturally gifted, nor for the lucky. It is reserved for those who are relentless, who refuse comfort, and who choose to be uncommon, even among the extraordinary. Chapter 10. Taking it to the next level. Achievement, Goggins discovered, is not a destination. It is a process, a ladder with rungs that stretch endlessly upward. Each rung conquered reveals another, higher and more demanding. By the time he had distinguished himself among the elite, the Navy SEALs, and ultramarathon athletes, the challenge was no longer simply to survive or compete. The challenge became to take it to the next level, to continue raising the bar, to break through ceilings that others accepted as limits. For Goggins, taking it to the next level is a mindset. It is a refusal to settle for comfort or previous accomplishments. It is understanding that the human body and mind are capable of far more than society allows us to believe, and it is the courage to test those limits constantly. He knew that if he rested on past victories, he would stagnate. Progress requires continuous discomfort. It demands that you seek out challenges that feel impossible. That is the only way to grow, to keep the mind sharp, and to ensure that strength is not temporary, but permanent. He recounts one of the most grueling periods of his life, training for the Badwater Ultramarathon, often called the world's toughest foot race, held in Death Valley during the hottest part of summer. Competitors run 135 miles through sweltering heat, carrying nothing but what their bodies can endure. For Goggins, this was not just a physical trial. It was a test of mental strategy, perseverance, and willpower. Each mile became a battle, each step a confrontation with pain, each glance at the horizon a challenge to keep moving forward when the body screamed to stop. What made him successful in these extreme conditions was his philosophy of incremental escalation. He did not think about the entire race at once. He focused on the next step, the next mile, the next survival tactic. By breaking down an overwhelming challenge into manageable pieces, he could endure beyond what most would consider possible. And each level conquered became proof that limits are illusions, constantly waiting to be shattered. Goggins also emphasizes the importance of reflection and self-assessment in taking it to the next level. After each race, each challenge, each extreme test of endurance, he analyzes his performance. Not just the successes, but the failures, the mistakes, the moments where he could have pushed harder. This brutal honesty with oneself ensures that every experience becomes a lesson, every hardship a blueprint for improvement, and every success a stepping stone rather than a plateau. He shares that taking it to the next level is not reserved for athletes or warriors. It applies to every aspect of life: career, relationships, personal growth, and even the pursuit of knowledge. Wherever you find yourself plateauing, whether it is mental, physical, or emotional, the principle remains the same. Discomfort is growth, struggle is training, and persistence is progress. By deliberately seeking challenges and raising expectations, we push past limits imposed not by reality, but by fear and habit. As this chapter closes, Goggins reminds us that taking it to the next level requires courage, discipline, and relentless commitment. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Safety is the enemy of excellence. The only way forward is to embrace suffering, to confront fear, to endure beyond what seems possible, and to push continually into the unknown. The next level awaits those who refuse to settle, who refuse to quit, and who understand that life's true victories are earned by relentless effort, one step, one struggle, one decision at a time. Chapter 11. What if? Life is full of questions, but some of the most powerful ones are the simple what-ifs. What if you push yourself further than you ever thought possible? What if you embrace discomfort instead of avoiding it? What if you stopped accepting limits imposed by society, circumstance, or even your own mind? For David Goggins, The question of what if became a guiding force, a lens through which he viewed every challenge and every opportunity. After years of testing himself in the military, ultramarathons, and extreme physical challenges, Goggins realized that most people live with invisible boundaries. They are defined by their fears, by what others expect, or by what they believe is possible. They accept mediocrity because it is safe, because it is comfortable, because it does not require suffering. But Goggins' life illustrates the opposite. The moment we ask ourselves, what if, and dare to explore the answer, we unlock potential we never knew existed. He reflects on some of his own defining moments. What if he had given up during Hell Week? What if he had refused to push past the exhaustion in his first ultramarathon? What if he had accepted the excuses that his upbringing, his weight, or his circumstances seemed to offer? In each case, the what if became a challenge, a call to action. It was an invitation to see beyond limitations and to embrace possibility, no matter how improbable. The what if mindset is not merely about dreaming or imagining. It is about action. It is about taking a possibility and turning it into a plan, and a plan into relentless execution. Goggins stresses that curiosity alone is not enough. Asking, what if I could, must be followed by what will I do to make it happen? It is the bridge between imagination and achievement, between vision and reality. He also emphasizes that what if questions are transformative when we apply them to suffering? What if pain could become a tool instead of a punishment? What if failure could become a lesson rather than a verdict? What if discomfort were the path to strength instead of a signal to retreat? By reframing adversity as opportunity, Goggins found a source of limitless growth. The what-if mentality allowed him to challenge conventional thinking, to redefine what was possible, and to continually push his own boundaries. Goggins invites us to apply this principle in our own lives. Where have we accepted limits that are not real? Where have we settled for comfort instead of striving for growth? What if we embrace the challenges we have avoided, the fears we have ignored, the obstacles we have resigned ourselves to? The answers to these questions are often hidden behind pain, effort, and discomfort, but they are always waiting for those willing to ask. As this chapter closes, the lesson is clear. Asking what if is a call to action, a spark that ignites potential. It is an acknowledgement that life is not fixed, that limits are often illusions, and that our greatest achievements await on the other side of curiosity combined with courage. Goggins challenges us to step into our own what-ifs, to test ourselves, to endure, and to discover how far we're truly capable of going when we refuse to settle for less than our full potential. Chapter 12. I accept the suck. In the most grueling moments of life, when pain becomes relentless, when discomfort is inescapable, and when quitting seems not just tempting but inevitable, David Goggins discovered a philosophy that became his mantra. I accept the suck. It is a declaration of surrender, but not in the way most people think. It is not surrender to weakness, failure, or defeat. It is surrender to reality, the acknowledgement that suffering exists, that life is often unfair, and that only by accepting hardship can we truly grow. Goggins first embraced this mindset during his military training, when Hell Week pushed him beyond the limits of physical and mental endurance. The days were long, the nights were short, and the instructors showed no mercy. Every muscle screamed in protest. Every joint throbbed with pain, and yet the challenges kept coming, relentless and unyielding. Most men would have quit. Some did. Many endured, but only a few thrived. For Goggins, the moment he stopped resisting the suffering and instead accepted it, a transformation occurred. Acceptance did not make the pain disappear, but it allowed him to move through it with focus, determination, and a sense of control. I accept the suck is not a passive resignation. It is an active choice. It is a conscious decision to face discomfort head-on, to embrace the struggle instead of hiding from it. When your body is exhausted, your mind is screaming, and your situation seems hopeless, saying these words is a form of empowerment. It is a reminder that while you cannot always control the circumstances, you can control your response. Pain becomes not an enemy, but a teacher, guiding you to new levels of resilience, strength, and self-understanding. Goggins illustrates this principle through countless experiences, from long-distance races that pushed his body to its absolute limits, to military missions that demanded every ounce of his energy and focus. Each time, the mantra served as an anchor. It allowed him to reframe suffering not as a barrier, but as a tool. When exhaustion threatened to stop him, acceptance turned the moment into an opportunity to prove what he was made of. When fear tried to dominate, acceptance reminded him that he could endure it. When doubt clouded his mind, acceptance gave him clarity. He also explains that most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They seek comfort, predictability, and safety, believing that hardship is to be feared or avoided. But this avoidance comes at a cost. Growth is stunted, potential is unrealized, and resilience remains underdeveloped. By contrast, those who accept the suck, who step willingly into difficulty, pain, and adversity, cultivate an internal strength that cannot be taken away. This is the essence of true empowerment, the ability to face any challenge and continue forward, no matter how grueling. In life beyond the military and endurance races, this philosophy applies universally. Work stress, personal loss, financial hardship, or emotional struggle, all of these are forms of suck. Most people fight against them or run away, but Goggins' example teaches that acceptance transforms these challenges into instruments of growth. Each difficulty becomes a chance to fortify the mind, test the spirit, and expand the limits of what is possible. As this chapter closes, Goggins leaves us with a powerful truth. Suffering is inevitable, but misery is optional. The difference lies in choice. We can fight reality and be crushed under it, or we can accept it, embrace it, and use it as fuel to propel ourselves forward. I accept the suck is more than a statement. It is a strategy, a mindset, and a call to action. By uttering it, by truly internalizing it, we equip ourselves to endure, to thrive, and to rise above challenges that would defeat the unprepared. Chapter 13, the 40% rule. Most people, Goggins argues, operate at only about 40% of their true potential. When you feel exhausted, when your body screams to stop, when your mind is filled with doubt and fear, that is not the limit. It is merely the beginning. The human capacity for endurance, for effort, for resilience, is far greater than we commonly believe. This insight became what he calls the 40% rule, a principle that underpins much of his life philosophy. He first discovered this rule in the crucible of SEAL training. Countless times during Hell Week, he felt certain he could not continue. His body trembled from exhaustion, his lungs burned, and sleep deprivation clouded every thought. Every instinct screamed to quit, but then he realized something extraordinary. When he thought he had reached the absolute limit, there was still a reserve, a hidden store of energy, strength, and willpower that he had never tapped. The 40% rule became the mental key that allowed him to unlock that reserve. Goggins explains that this reserve exists because the mind protects the body. Most of us stop long before we reach our true physical or mental boundaries. Pain, fatigue, and discomfort are signals meant to preserve our body, to prevent harm. But those signals are often conservative, limiting our potential unnecessarily. By understanding this principle, Goggins could push past the self-imposed limits and access the other 60% of strength that lay dormant. He illustrates this with countless examples. running ultramarathons when his feet were raw and bleeding, completing military training exercises that seemed designed to break the body, and even performing thousands of pull-ups or miles of running that defied logic. Each time, the 40% rule reminded him that when it hurts most, that is exactly when he can grow, when he can gain an edge, when he can achieve the extraordinary. The power of this rule is as much psychological as it is physical. By believing that there is always more to give, by refusing to accept the limits that arise in the mind, we challenge the narrative of weakness. Pain becomes a doorway rather than a wall. Exhaustion becomes an invitation rather than a signal to retreat. And each time we push past what we think is the limit, we expand it further, creating new standards for what is possible. Goggins also emphasizes preparation and incremental growth. The 40% rule is not about reckless overexertion. It is about disciplined escalation. Through repeated exposure to challenge, through deliberate discomfort, and through relentless practice, we teach the mind and body to tolerate and even thrive under stress. What once seemed unbearable gradually becomes achievable, and with that expansion, the realm of possibility grows exponentially. He invites the reader to reflect. How often have you quit when you were only at 40% of your capacity? How often have fear, doubt, or discomfort dictated the outcome when the truth was that you were far from your limit? By consciously applying the 40% rule, you can break through the invisible barriers that hold you back, tap into reserves of energy and resilience you never knew existed, and redefine your understanding of what you are capable of. As this chapter closes, the message is unambiguous. When you feel like you cannot go further, you are only beginning. The 40% rule is a call to action, a blueprint for pushing beyond ordinary limits, and a reminder that human potential is far greater than we allow ourselves to believe. Every challenge, every moment of pain, every test of endurance is an opportunity to push past 40%, to access what was once hidden, and to take one step closer to becoming unbreakable. Chapter 14, Taking Souls, Advanced Lessons/Stories. By the time Goggins had survived Hell Week and countless ultramarathons, he had already introduced the concept of taking souls. The act of outperforming expectations so completely that even your challengers or detractors are forced to acknowledge your strength. But as he continued to push himself, he discovered that this principle could be applied far beyond the military training field, far beyond competitions, and even beyond physical endurance. It became a philosophy for life itself. Goggins reflects on the essence of taking souls. It is not about defeating others in a traditional sense, nor is it about seeking recognition or admiration. It is about asserting control over circumstances that are designed to break you, and in doing so, revealing an inner power that others may not expect. Every moment of suffering, every obstacle faced, is an opportunity to demonstrate this principle. The act is subtle but profound. By embracing the struggle, performing at your absolute limit, and refusing to give in, you create a psychological impact that transcends the physical. He shares stories of extreme endurance races where competitors doubted his capacity and even mocked his appearance or prior struggles. Each race became a stage to test the principle of taking souls. When others faltered from heat, fatigue, or discouragement, Goggins pushed forward, not just to finish, but to dominate the experience, leaving a lasting impression of resilience and determination. His energy was contagious, and often those who doubted him became inspired or silently defeated by his unwavering focus. Taking souls also applies in everyday life. Goggins recounts how he approached professional challenges, personal goals, and even casual interactions with the same intensity. When others expected excuses, he offered effort. When others anticipated retreat, he advanced. When challenges seemed insurmountable, he leaned in. This philosophy transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary because it is not dependent on conditions being favorable. It is dependent on an internal refusal to be broken. He emphasizes that this is not about arrogance or ego. Taking souls is a strategy born from discipline, humility, and the recognition that suffering is universal. Everyone encounters hardship, but few embrace it and rise above it consciously. By doing so, you take ownership of your life and force the world to adjust to your presence, even subtly. You do not control others' reactions, but you control your actions and your mindset, and that alone creates a profound ripple effect. Goggins encourages the reader to identify moments in their own life where they can apply this principle. It might be a challenging project at work, an athletic pursuit, or even the struggle to overcome personal fears and doubts. Each scenario is an opportunity to push past what is expected, to outperform limitations, and to leave a lasting impact on both yourself and those around you. As the chapter closes, Goggins offers a final reflection. Life is filled with tests, obstacles, and moments designed to reveal weakness. Taking souls is not about being better than someone else. It is about being better than the version of yourself that wants to quit. It is about leveraging struggle, embracing discomfort, and converting adversity into evidence of your strength. When you do this consistently, you become unstoppable, not because the world bends to you, but because you have mastered the ability to rise above, no matter the circumstances. Chapter 15, What If? Final Reflections/Conclusion. As we reach the final chapter of this journey through David Goggins' life, the central question emerges once again. What if? What if you refuse to accept the limitations imposed by your body, your mind, or your circumstances? What if you embrace discomfort, suffering, and challenge as tools rather than obstacles? What if you consistently chose to push past fear, fatigue, and doubt? Goggins leaves us with the most powerful reflection. The only limits that truly exist are the ones we accept. Throughout his life, Goggins faced abuse, poverty, learning disabilities, obesity, and countless other hardships. Each could have been a reason to stop, to quit, to accept mediocrity. Yet he chose a different path, a path of relentless effort, accountability, and self-mastery. By asking, what if? He turned every adversity into an opportunity, every challenge into a chance to discover more about himself and the depth of human potential. This mindset transforms life from a series of limitations into a playground of possibility. He reminds us that suffering is inevitable, but growth is optional. Most people avoid pain, yet it is precisely through discomfort that the mind and body expand. By embracing the process, accepting the struggle, and refusing to quit, we uncover reserves of resilience, determination, and mental strength that are far greater than we ever imagined. The what if becomes a catalyst for courage, a spark that lights the fire of relentless pursuit, and a guiding question that transforms potential into achievement. Goggins also emphasizes accountability. The mirror, the journal, and the daily practice of confronting one's weaknesses are not mere exercises. They are lifelines. Self-reflection, brutal honesty, and constant evaluation allow us to identify excuses, face fears, and commit to action. Without this internal rigor, motivation is fleeting and progress is easily sabotaged. But with it, the human spirit can endure anything. Finally, he leaves us with a vision. Life is not about trophies, recognition, or external validation. It is about mastery over oneself, the ability to face suffering, rise after failure, and persist when all odds suggest retreat. It is about building an armored mind, cultivating discipline, and pushing beyond the arbitrary limits that society and our own fears impose. By applying the lessons throughout this book, The accountability mirror, the 40% rule, taking souls, I accept the suck, and relentless self-improvement, we discover that we are capable of far more than we think. As the audiobook draws to a close, the message resonates clearly. Every obstacle is a test, every hardship an opportunity, and every moment of suffering a doorway to greatness. By asking what if, and choosing action over excuses, by refusing to settle for mediocrity and embracing discomfort, you begin the lifelong journey of self-mastery. The limits you perceive are illusions. The strength you seek is within, and the person you are meant to become is waiting, just beyond the point where most people give up. This is the essence of Can't Hurt Me, a story of transformation, endurance, and the relentless pursuit of human potential. It is a call to rise above, to push past fear, to embrace pain, and to discover the extraordinary capabilities that lie dormant within all of us. Goggins proves, with every mile run, every obstacle overcome, and every challenge faced, that the mind is the ultimate weapon, and that anyone willing to suffer can become unbreakable.